Hi guys, Small here. Welcome back to another Arknights operator review. Today we are diving into Thorns the Lodestar, the shiny new 6-star operator, also known as Thorns Altar. Gotta say, we've been swimming in altars lately, right? Not that I'm complaining. Seeing these revamped versions of fan favorites, especially with this level of drip, is always a treat. Now, Thorns is a big deal in the community. His original version, an absolute monster back in IS2, strong, reliable and easy to use. Over time his relevance might have faded a bit, but his recent module has brought him back into the spotlight. He's a solid pick again, especially for AFK comps and daily content. So naturally everyone is asking, is Thorns Altar worth it? Will he live up to the legacy of his original and earn a spot in the teams of both new and veteran players? Don't worry, I'll give you my full take in the conclusions. But first, as always, we'll break down his kit in detail so you can see for yourself and decide if he is the operator for you. Let's get started. Thorns Altar belongs to the Alchemist archetype, a branch of the Specialist class. Right now, there's only one other Alchemist on the Chinese server, Tin Man, who was released with IS5. Yep, that's our team-plated buddy over here. Since he hasn't made his debut on the global server yet, let's take a moment to break down what Alchemists do and what makes them stand out. Stat-wise, Alchemists are pretty low across the board, except for one thing, they've got absurdly high magic resistance. Seriously, we are talking some of the best res in the entire game. Tin Man hits 38 res without breaking a sweat, and Thorns cranks it up to 32 res if you snag 3 dupes. That's roughly 40% less arts damage taken. Crazy, right? Now, about their trait. It's all about tossing out alchemy units. These little guys are what define the archetype. They've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Buffing, debuffing, dealing damage, healing, you name it. But how do they work? Alchemy units are thrown onto the field during skills and come with some very cool mechanics. First, unlike summons, they don't take up tiles or deployment slots. Think of them as AoE zones that stick around for the skill's duration. What's even cooler? These units don't rely on the caster once they're on the field. If your alchemist dies or gets retreated, no worries, the units keep doing their thing until their timer runs out. And the best part is that they don't pause SP recovery. Once the alchemy units are deployed, the alchemist starts regaining SP immediately, even while the units are still active. This leads to insane skill uptime, which, spoiler alert, is a massive part of why Thorns Altar's kit is so effective. We'll dig deeper into this when we break down his skills. The independence of alchemy units from their casters brings some really intriguing mechanics. For starters, any effect the units produce is based on the caster stats at the moment they're deployed. If the unit deals art damage equal to a percentage of the caster's attack, it will use the caster's attack value from the exact time the skill was activated, regardless of what happens afterward. What does this mean in practice? Buff Thorns' attack before activating a skill, and the alchemy unit will remember that buffed attack stat, even if the buff expires later, or if Thorns himself leaves the field. Here is a quick demonstration to illustrate. At the start, Thorns has Warframe's attack buff active. He casts his skill and throws the alchemy unit. Now watch as the unit continues to deal the same boosted damage even after Warframe's buff runs out. For comparison, I'll show the damage without any buffs. It's a noticeable difference. But there's more. The damage dealt by the alchemy units is classified as sourceless. This means that enemies who reflect damage, like the spiked chests in IS or the reflect units from the Virtuosa event, won't be able to reflect the alchemy unit's damage back to Thorns, although they will reflect Thorns' own damage. Of course, sourceless damage isn't without drawbacks. For instance, it doesn't interact with certain mechanics like Virtuosa skill 2, which could have allowed these units to deal necrosis damage. As shown here, only Thorns is applying necrosis, while the units are not. Lastly, a quick note on damage types. Alchemist's basic attacks deal physical damage, as seen here against a shield bearer with 0 res but high defense. Thorns' regular attacks barely scratch him. On the flip side, the alchemy units generally deal arts damage, and sometimes a lot of it, as we see with Thorns skill 3. So, what's the takeaway? Alchemists bring serious versatility and flexibility. Their AoE effects persist on the field even without the operator, and their fast skill cycles with high uptime make them incredibly efficient. Overall, the Alchemist archetype stands out as a reliable source of consistent arts damage and utility. With Thorns' archetype covered, let's dive into his kit and see how he leveraged the strength of the alchemists, starting with his first talent. This one is pretty simple. Thorns gets a small attack bonus, and if other operators are within his attack range, his alchemy units stick around for 3 extra seconds. The attack boost? Nothing special. Alchemists already have a low base attack, so it's not game-changing. And at first glance, 3 more seconds on the alchemy units might not sound like much either, but you'd be mistaken. Those extra seconds aren't just about extending skill duration, though that's definitely a perk. The real value lies in how it synergizes with the alchemist archetype's mechanics. Remember, when an alchemist casts a skill and deploys an alchemy unit, they immediately start regenerating SP. More time on the field means more time for the skill to recharge, bringing you closer to permanent uptime. And if you time things well, you could even overlap multiple units. 2, 3, or heck, maybe 4 at once. The possibilities snowball quickly. We'll dive deeper into how this plays out when we'll discuss Thorn's skills, but for now it's clear this talent amplifies the archetype's strengths and seamlessly integrates into its design. As for activation, it's incredibly easy to trigger. Thorn's skills are designed to either support allies or rely on their presence within his range, so you'll naturally meet the conditions in almost every scenario. One last note, just like all properties of alchemy units, their duration is locked in when they are deployed. So even if you retreat operators afterward, the units will last as long as they were supposed to when cast. Alright, let's talk about Thorn's second talent. This one provides a global boost. Allies get 5 extra attack speed, while enemies lose 5 attack speed. If allies or enemies stand on tiles that form a straight line of 6 or more tiles, these effects double. So allies get faster and enemies slow down even more. Simple enough, right? But you might be wondering, do I really have to count the tiles myself? No way! Thankfully Hyperglyph has your back. When Thorns is deployed, the affected tiles light up briefly, showing you where the doubled effects apply. A permanent indicator might have been better, but it could clutter the screen too much, so this feels like a reasonable compromise. And to be honest, the boost isn't huge, it's small enough that you might not even notice it. However, it's a global effect with minimal requirements, which is always a welcome bonus. Here is where it gets interesting. You can stack attack speed buffs to make the boost more impactful. Throw in Angelina with her module, and you're looking at another 12 or 13 attack speed. Add Shu, and you've got an additional 12. That's potentially 34 permanent attack speed for your operators. Check out this clip to see the difference, it's impressive, and Angelina doesn't even have her module equipped here. Overall, this talent is a nice quality of life feature, but not a game changer on its own. If future modules were to bump up these numbers, it could become much more exciting. For now, it's a solid but unremarkable addition to his kit. Alright, we have finally arrived at Thorns skills. Let's kick things off with skill 1. With this skill, Thorns throws an alchemy unit that provides a small AoE healing and a defense boost to all allies in its range. At Mastery 3, the skill costs just 5 SP and lasts for 8 seconds. If Talent 1 activates, the unit's duration extends to a full 11 seconds. You see where this is going, right? With such a low SP cost and decent uptime, it's easy to stack multiple alchemy units in the same area. The result? Double or even triple the defense and healing, creating a super safe zone for your team. Pretty neat! The skill activates automatically, which might not be ideal. As for targeting, it prioritizes allies with the lowest HP, breaking ties by choosing the most recently deployed operator. Now here is where things get interesting. The skill can heal unhealable operators, like Madrock and Penance, as well as Reapers like Humus and Executor Halter. It even works on summons. This makes Thorns a strong alternative to Bards when it comes to sustaining these unique units. Check out this clip of Thorns healing them in action. And let's not forget Ling. Sure, Walter may have stolen her thunder, but back in the day Ling was the operator for soloing or clearing stages with minimal teams. With Thorns adding extra defense and healing, she's now stronger than ever. I mean, who doesn't love a good Ling showcase? That said, this skill does have its drawbacks. While healing unhealable units is a great niche, deploying an 18 DP operator just to heal summons or your wife Madrock might not feel worth it in today's meta. Also, the healing output is underwhelming compared to dedicated healers. Operators like Lumen, Aya Alter and Shining outperform Thorns skill 1 by a significant margin. For standard healable operators, Thorns might not be a viable replacement for traditional healers. Plus, skill 2 also offers healing for unhealable units and brings way more utility, leaving little reason to stick with skill 1. Finally, the short healing range is another downside. When you've got options like Aya Alter covering half the map, the limited range of this skill becomes hard to overlook. All in all, skill 1 is a niche option that you'll likely think twice about investing in. But don't worry, Thorns' next skills are where things really start to get spicy. Alright, let's dive into skill 2. When activated, Thorns throws an alchemy unit that moves forward in the direction it was thrown, gradually growing in size as it rolls. For some reason, this gives me major Agario vibes. Just look at these massive balls. They're practically covering half the screen by the time they're done expanding. Now let's break it down. Within the range of these alchemy units, enemies take consistent arts damage every second, while friendly operators get healed. The skill costs 20 SP and lasts 15 seconds, or 18 seconds if Talent 1 is active. This leaves just a 2-second downtime between one unit disappearing and the next being thrown, giving you nearly permanent uptime right off the bat. And it gets even better. The skill can hold 2 charges, and with SP batteries like Ptilopsis, Shu or Stainless in the mix, you can easily hit full uptime, or even spam these rolling units. The result? A stage absolutely flooded with Agario balls, an oddly satisfying sight as they slowly chew through enemies across the map. A quick note, Thorns prioritizes throwing his units toward enemies, but if none are in range, he simply tosses them straight ahead. On the healing front, Tin Man skill 2 edges this one out in terms of raw numbers, but Thorns' wide area coverage makes up for the slightly weaker healing output. Plus, like skill 1, these can heal summons and unhealable Juggernaut operators like Madrock and Penance, which is always a nice bonus. When it comes to damage though, Thorns leaves Teammen in the dust. The consistent arse damage from these units is nothing to scoff at, especially with their huge range and uptime. That said, there are a couple of limitations to keep in mind. The skill only damages ground enemies, so aerial targets are completely safe. That's a stark contrast to skill 3, which can shred both ground and aerial enemies alike. Interestingly, skill 2 has a peculiar quirk against invisible enemies. If the damage over time is already hitting an enemy when they turn invisible, it continues to deal damage. This is a subtle but handy feature in stages with clocked enemies. Just note that skill 3 doesn't share this trait. It stops hitting as soon as enemies disappear back into the shadows. Finally, let's talk about a neat bonus. The skill can halve the healing effects of enemies. It's fantastic against foes like Mephisto. Just look at this healing getting chopped in half. It also works on gramophones from the Suzerain event, halving their healing too. That said, enemies with healing abilities are pretty rare in Arknights, and they're not particularly hard to handle with regular DPS operators. So while this effect is cool, its impact is fairly limited at the moment. But hey, who knows, this could end up being clutch in future content. Now let's discuss the drawbacks. The biggest issue is that Thorns often tosses the ball too far, placing himself outside its ceiling range. And because the ball moves away from Thorns, he might struggle to heal himself when under pressure. So if Thorns is in a dangerous spot and needs steady healing, don't rely solely on this skill to keep him alive. All things considered, skill 2 is your go-to for daily content. If you are planning to use Thorns Altar regularly, specializing in this skill is a solid choice. But remember, it's skill 3 that truly sets him apart. If you are deciding where to invest first, skill 3 should definitely take priority. Let's talk about skill 3, the main event. This skill is absolutely loaded with mechanics and brings a fresh, geometry-inspired twist that's sure to delight strategy enthusiasts. Let's break it down. First off, Thorns gets an attack range upgrade that matches Wishadle's. You know, that massive range. This expanded range is a passive effect, so you're getting that sweet long reach even when the skill isn't active. Perfect for covering a wide battlefield or hitting sneaky enemies from afar. Now for the fun part, the polygons. When activated, Thorns throws multiple alchemy balls to friendly operators in his range, forming a polygonal zone. The skill lasts 23 seconds, 26 with his first talent, which, let's be honest, will always be active with the skill. At skill level 7, Thorns creates polygons with 3 edges, and starting at Mastery 1, he can go up to 4 edges. It's basically an art project, except this one obliterates enemies. Thorns prioritizes throwing balls at operators with the lowest block count, followed by the most recently deployed ones. This setup screams fast redeploy operators, especially those with DP refund modules. And you know who fits this role perfectly? Crown Slayer. Yes, even Crown Slayer can look meta-worthy with Thorns on the team. Finally, a purpose for her existence. Crown Slayer isn't the only operator who got a glow up thanks to Thorns. Enter Marcel, our clumsy mage who desperately needed an AoE magic resistant debuffer to truly shine. Thorns steps in as the perfect pattern for her, unlocking her potential in ways few others can. Inside the polygon, enemies suffer massive arse damage every second and get hit with a triple whammy of debuffs: attack reduction, defense reduction, and magic resistance reduction. Here is the kicker: both the damage and debuff effects scale over time, ramping up to absurd levels. For example, the defense and magic resistance reduction starts at 35% and ramps up to a jaw-dropping 50% after 15 seconds. That's right, the skill essentially cuts enemy defenses in half. Combine that with the ridiculous arse damage ticking away and you've got a recipe for destruction. Compared to other top-tier debuffers, Thorns is no slouch. Pramanix can reduce defense by 60%, and Shemar is 50%, which puts Thorns 35 to 50% range right beside them. For magic resistance, the best debuffers include Ifrit with a 30% reduction through their talent and a flat 20 with their skill 3, along with Pramanix and Texas Alter, who both offer 30%. Haze is also worth a mention, though calculating her impact is a bit trickier and best left to the big brain doctors. While we are on the subject of comparisons, let's talk about Ifrit, because Thorns Alter and Ifrit have more in common than you'd think. Let's start with the obvious: range. With skill 3, Thorns can replicate Ifrit's iconic range -1 tile just by placing an operator in front of him and activating the skill. Despite what some skeptics have been saying, this isn't hard at all. It's literally as simple as dropping an operator. And if you want to get fancy, you can create an even bigger polygonal area, but honestly, a line works just fine. Range aside, both Thorns and Ifrit bring massive rest debuffs and even greater adds damage to the table. When you compare the two, Thorns pulls ahead by a small margin, even against heavyweights like Patriot. And the best part is, he's not even physically on the battlefield for most of it. Besides, all of this comes with a much lower DP cost. Even when compared to heavy hitters like Heia's Volcano, this skill holds its own, proving to be a top-tier adds damage option. Does it surpass Logos? No, but it doesn't need to, and that doesn't diminish its high standing. Besides, why replace Logos with Thorns when you can use both? As a matter of fact, Thorns also serves as a solid alternative to Virtuosa, who happens to be the perfect partner for Logos. This highlights just how versatile Thorns is, effortlessly complementing virtually any burst damage dealer in the game. On top of the defense and magic resistance debuffs, skill 3 also reduces enemy attack by up to 30%. For reference, Shemar can drop both defense and attack by 50%, so she's the stronger choice for pure debuffing. But don't underestimate that 30% attack reduction. It's a huge asset against high damage enemies. Now, you're probably thinking, this skill is way too powerful to have a short cooldown, right? Well, wrong. That's because alchemists are just built different. Skill 3 lasts 26 seconds with talent 1 and has a 60 SP cost, but since alchemists start regenerating SP while the skill is active, you can recast it every 34 seconds. That's insane for a skill of this caliber, and with only 12 seconds needed to charge for the first cast, this skill is also perfect for early drop strategies. Let's now dive into some fascinating details about how skill 3 works. Enemies don't need to physically pass through the polygon to feel its effects. If they're blocked by an operator standing on an edge, they'll still get hit. This makes the skill super flexible and easy to use. Another curious aspect is that summons don't count as valid target operators for forming polygons. For example, if you try using Link's dragons, no polygon will form with them. On the other hand, unlike skill 2, skill 3 can target and absolutely devastate aerial enemies. We have sung this skill's praises, but it's only fair to highlight its weaknesses too. To fully maximize its potential, you'll need to deploy several operators and place them strategically, which can be tricky or costly depending on the map layout. Sometimes this results in awkward operator positioning or in badly formed polygons, especially if you don't remember the deployment order of your operators. But remember, in the worst case, just drop one operator in front of Thorns and form a line. It still gets the job done. Another limitation is that enemies must stay within the polygon to be affected. Fast-moving foes can slip out before taking full damage, so you'll need blockers or crowd control specialists to pin them down. Operators like Escalon and Ethan are ideal since their zero block status makes them priority targets for the skill. The bottom line is, skill 3 is not just strong. It's absurdly efficient, highly flexible and a blast to use. Whether you are shredding high-res enemies, supporting burst damage dealers, or just having fun painting polygons on the battlefield, the skill has it all. And the best part? Thorns doesn't even need to stay on the field for all of this to happen. While skill 2 might be your go-to for daily content, skill 3 is the defining feature of Thorns' Altar, setting him apart from every other operator. If you plan to use Thorns' Altar seriously, specializing in this skill is a no-brainer, and getting it to at least Mastery 1 for that crucial 4th link is an absolute must. Let's wrap things up. The new Alchemist Thorns has proven himself to be a versatile powerhouse. Whether you need damage, healing or debuffs, he can handle it all. Plus, he's got the ability to heal unkillable operators, which is a fantastic bonus. While skills 1 and 2 have their uses for daily content, they don't exactly shake the meta. The real star is skill 3, offering potent debuffs on par with top tier specialists alongside massive AoE damage on a fast cycle. It's safe to say Thorns' Altar is a well-rounded and rock-solid 6-star operator. But let's ask the big question, is he a must pull? With Wishadle's release, the very concept of must pull has shifted. Wishadle can pretty much solo most stages with ease, leaving little room for other operators to shine. She has essentially pushed 90% of the roster into niche roles, only standing out in ultra-specific scenarios. In this context, it's no surprise that players are scrutinizing new operators more than ever, pointing out flaws or limitations. Skill 3 has its quirks, especially with deployment and map layout requirements. But, as I've said, it's not rocket science. Worst case, drop a fast redeploy operator in front of Thorns and voila, you've got yourself an Ifrit 2.0. That said, I get it. This requires a bit more setup than Wishadle or Logos, who just annihilate everything with a single click. It's just that Thorns was never meant to dominate as a pure DPS. His numbers simply don't put him in that category. However, this leaves room to question his potential as a supporter or debuffer. And yet, one wonders if debuffers and supporters can still be meta, or rather, were they ever truly meta? In my last review when discussing Vulpes Folia, I touched on popular YouTube clears for recent high difficulty content like Design of Strife, CCB1 and CCB2. Maybe we can also throw in BBS4 and BPX8 in the bunch. Fair warning, there's definitely some selection bias here. Guide creators tend to prioritize operators that are accessible and user-friendly to make their strategies broadly applicable. But even with that in mind, it's striking how absent dedicated debuffers and supporters are. Take a look, you'll find Suzerain and Virtuosa making appearances, and maybe Skull the Altar for those AFK strategies, but that's about it. No Shemer, no Pramanix. And let's be honest, Virtuosa is inching closer and closer to full-blown DPS territory, so calling her a supporter feels a bit misleading these days. Now, when it comes to logos, we have already established that Thorns can act as a stand-in for Virtuosa. But let's be real, if you already have Virtuosa, do you even care? You're probably going to use her anyway, because she's just simpler to deploy. And hey, why not throw in Nymph for some extra spice? So that leaves Suzerain. Can Thor's altar step into Suzerain's shoes, or at least compete with her? And why does Suzerain still get love from the community, while most other supporters are gathering dust? The answer lies in Suzerain's skill 3. It's a powerhouse. A massive AoE slow with an 80% movement reduction, a 30% damage multiplier, and some healing for allies on top. Her strength lies in this huge AoE crowd control and damage amplification combo. Thorns can compete in terms of damage amplification, and he brings his own considerable DPS to the table. But when it comes to crowd control, he's got nothing. And let's not forget his range is highly map dependent, while Suzerain's effectiveness stays consistent across most layouts. So no, Thorns isn't a replacement for Suzerain. Her slow and wide coverage are just too integral to her role. But let's take a closer look at the teams that use Suzerain. Notice how often Suzerain gets paired with Saria, specifically Saria skill 3. And no, Saria isn't there for healing. Tanking? Forget about it in super hard content. She's brought in for AoE arts damage amplification and, you guessed it, movement speed reduction. Essentially, she's filling the same role as Suzerain, often acting as her stand-in while Suzerain's skill is recharging. And this highlights just how close Thorns could have been to absolute greatness, if only Hyperglyph had given him a movement speed debuff instead of that attack reduction, but I digress. Now, while Saria often subs in for Suzerain, there are times when they are used together. Those are the moments where the bosses are so tanky, so ridiculously overtuned that one damage amplifier isn't enough. And this, I believe, is where Thorns can really shine. For those situations where Suzerain alone isn't enough, Thorns can step in as the final piece of the puzzle. With Suzerain applying Fragile and Thorns layering his debuffs, you'll have all the tools you need to take down even the toughest bosses. Is this a small niche? Absolutely. But let's be honest, when Wishadel already dominates 90% of the game's content, can we really expect anything else from new operators? And honestly, I'm glad Hyperglyph hasn't fallen back on the tired power creep formula you see in so many other gacha games. Wrapping up this review on Thorns Altar. For real this time. For new and casual players, Thorns is a nice addition, but far from a must-have. He's a solid operator, sure, but there are others who can carry you much further early on. And casual players, they probably won't sweat over the ultra-hard content where Thorns shines a little brighter. Plus, since he's a standard operator, there's no rush. You can always grab him later. With the Chinese New Year event and the next Sui sibling around the corner, saving resources might be the smarter move. For veteran players with a well-rounded roster though, Thorns could be a game changer for tackling specific challenges. If you're stuck on something like ending 4 in IS4, it might be the missing piece to finally push through. That alone could make him worth pulling for, depending on your goals. At the end of the day, these are just my thoughts. You are more than welcome to form your own conclusions, and I'd love to hear them in the comments. Alright, that's another review in the books. Thanks for watching as always, and I see you next time.